We will find out if a day off did the Tribe some good after the red-hot Tigers bolted Cleveland with a 3-game sweep. The Indians continue a stretch of 17 straight games against the Central as the new-look White Sox come to town. Carlos Carrasco picked up right where he left off to end 2014 against the Astros. And tonight, he'll face Jose Abreu and the Southsiders next on Sports Time Ohio. The Indians' first homestand of the season continues tonight with the Indians still in search of their first home win here in 2015 as they welcome in the Chicago White Sox. Hi again, everyone. Matt Underwood alongside Rick Manning. Tribe will play Chicago here at home. That's really good news because the Indians have won 15 of their last 18 against Chicago right here in Cleveland, and they'll have to contain Jose Abreu. He's the ringleader of this very potent Chicago White Sox lineup.
Well, he burst onto the scene last year, Matt. I'll tell you what, this guy, he really proved what a great hitter he was. He had a good year against the Indians, but he had a good year against every team in the American League. I mean, if you pitched him away, he would go that way. If you pitched him in, he was a proven RBI guy from last year, 107 ribbies. He had 36 home runs, hit 317, and that's the most home runs by a rookie since McGuire. You can see his numbers against the Indians, but he's one guy, if you can, with the game on the line, he's like a Miguel Cabrera. Walk him. You don't really want to pitch to him. Whoever's behind him, make him beat you.
All right, and Carlos Carrasco will be on the hill tonight for Cleveland, and Rick, he's going to face a Chicago White Sox lineup that is very aggressive, and for Carrasco, he's coming off a 10-strikeout performance in his season debut.
Well, I think the way Carrasco was throwing the ball in his last start, I'd be aggressive too, because when he can get ahead of you, he can put you away. He had a vicious slider, he had 10 strikeouts, and Carlos has really picked it up. And I mean, he feels good about himself. He goes out there, and that's exactly what the Indians need. They need a quality start tonight against the White Sox. He'll be matched up against Jose Quintana, who's 3-0 in his career against the Indians. He's pitched well, but he was roughed up by the Kansas City Royals in his first start. Gave up 5 runs in about 6 innings of work.
Both Cleveland and Chicago come into this series 2-4 on the year. We'll see who gets the upper hand in Game 1 of this brief 2-game series. The play-by-play, starting lineups, it's all coming up next. Cleveland Indians baseball is brought to you by W.B. Mason, the official office supplier of the Cleveland Indians. By McDonald's, I'm loving it. By your local Toyota dealers. Visit buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. And by the injury lawyers at Elk & Elk, proud sponsors of the Cleveland Indians. Call 1-800-ELK, Ohio. And we welcome you into Progressive Field for game number 7 on the 2015 campaign. Indians at 2-4. Chicago also coming in 2-4 on the year. White Sox lost their first 4 games to start the year before winning the final 2 games of their series against the Minnesota Twins. Meanwhile, the Indians won 2 out of 3 in Houston and lost all 3 to Detroit here in their first home series of the season. So we'll see if they can get back on the winning track at home here tonight against Chicago. Let's go downstairs to our Andre Knott as we take a look at the roster moves. Sean Markham designated for assignment after pitching well out of the bullpen the other day. Brett Hayes, hey, you're a little thin behind the dish right now after the injury to Yan Gomes. You've got Roberto Perez, Carlos Santana. He volunteered to be the backup catcher, but they'd like to just keep him at first base, not subject him to the pounding and the punishment that he took when he was behind the dish. So Brett Hayes gets the call up. He'll be there for the foreseeable future. And Andre, a lot of shuffling with the roster here in the last 24 hours.
Whole lot of shuffling going on, Matt. But when you look at it, Matt Hayes had a really good spring, hit the ball well. But the one thing Tito Francona talked about is that he handled the pitching staff well, and all the guys are comfortable pitching to him. The Markham situation is tough for the simple fact that the team really wants to keep him. They didn't want to get rid of him, and they tried their best to do that, but they had to do it because of a numbers situation. Other big story really going on, though, Matt and guys, this is the 3rd game in a row that the Indians will go against a left-handed starter. I talked to Brandon Moss today, and he goes, look, I know I'm the new guy. He goes, but when I came into AL Central, I didn't know I was going to go against a lefty every single night. He said, I've never seen anything like this. But in talking to him and some of the other left-handed guys that are in the lineup tonight, they go, you know what? We'd rather do it in April early so we get to know these guys and we understand the type of guys that are going to be pitching at us as the season goes along. But I got to tell you, Moss, Michael Bourne, all those guys said they've never seen anything like this where they're going against so many lefties this early in a baseball season.
Well, like the old saying goes, what does not kill you makes you stronger. So, Rick, they've got to find a way to make the adjustment against the southpaws because they're going to keep on seeing them.
Left-handed heavy on the lineup, there's no doubt. They started to do it last year or even the year before when they had the left-handed bats. Anytime that a club could match up and start a left-hander against the Indians, they would do so. And you know what? Once you get used to it and once you get seeing it coming from the Southport side every time, you'll get used to it. It'll be better off.
All right, our window system's game time temperature here tonight going to go with 48 degrees under cloudy skies, a little on the cool side. Boy, yesterday it hit 81 degrees here in northeastern Ohio. It was beautiful. And then in the matter of minutes, the temperature plummeted, the rain blew through.
Yeah, welcome to spring.
Yeah, everything changed in a hurry. But all in all, not too shabby. It's dry, and that's the best news of the night as the Indians and White Sox are going to play a brief 2-gamer. When I say brief, night game, and then tomorrow at noon, and it's over. Just like that, first homestand of the season will be wrapped up. Carlos Carrasco and the Tribe take the field. We'll take a look at Robin Ventura's starting lineup for Chicago. It's presented by Toyota. Adam Eaton in the leadoff spot, followed by Melky Cabrera, a switch hitter. Jose Abreu bats third. Adam LaRoche, the DH, will hit cleanup. Avisel Garcia bats fifth. Alexei Ramirez, sixth. Connor Gillespie, seventh. Tyler Flowers, the catcher, eighth. Emilio Bonifacio, another switch hitter, will bat ninth.
And tonight's Northern Ohio Honda starting pitcher for the Tribe will be Carlos Carrasco. He'll be making his second start. First one coming in Houston, and it was a dandy. He went 6 1/3, gave up 3 hits, walked 1, struck out 10. Had really electric stuff out there. He will be making the start against the Chicago White Sox. And in his career, you know, he hasn't fared well. 2-4 against the White Sox, and they got to him early. But in his last 2 starts, which came in the second half of last year when Carlos Carrasco was Carlos Carrasco that we know now, he's 2-0 with a .59 ERA. So they're going to see a different guy out on the mound tonight, I would think. And hopefully, he can twirl a gem for the Indians. Let's check out the defense brought to you by Chrysler. It'll be Sands in left field. Bourne is in center. Moss over in right. Aviles is at third. Ramirez at short. Kipnis at second. Santana at first. And Perez doing the catching.
Brian Knight will call the balls and strikes for the series opener here. Vic Carapazza is at first. Larry Vanover, your crew chief, at second, and Ron Kolpa down at third. Ready to go now as Adam Eaton steps in to start it off for Chicago. Eaton, the table setter, has been unable to get on base here in the early going. Just 2 for 25 to start the year.
Well, let's hope he continues that stretch tonight and tomorrow.
First pitch of the game down low, ball 1. Well, it's not just that he's 2 for 25. He hasn't even drawn a walk yet. And your leadoff guy, let's face it, get on any way possible.
The whole team only has 6 walks.
They're not a team that's going to work the count very often. They like to swing it, as we talked about before the ballgame.
What'd you say? Last year they were, 47% of the time they swung at pitches?
Yeah, they led the American League in swing percentage. It was around 47, 48%.
Right.
Out of play to the left. Basically, in old-fashioned baseball lingo, they're looking for a ball to put in play from the get-go.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Some hitting philosophies, and you can talk about this, it's work the count, get yourself into a good hitter's count. But if you like the first pitch and it's there.
Yeah.
Up the middle, Kipnis, off balance, can't get him.
Yeah,
nice effort.
It's great effort, a good play, but not with the speed of Eaton. He is going to beat it out. Kipnis was able to get there and field it cleanly. And he made a throw, but Eaton just too fast.
Now here's a case where just putting a ball in play for Eaton results in a base hit. Didn't hit it hard.
No, it was placed perfectly because it was up the middle. It was actually a very good pitch. Eaton went probably 6 inches off the plate to put that ball in play. And he puts it on the ground, so he's able to beat it out. But there's nothing you can do. He got down to first base in under 4 seconds, 3.9, which is outstanding.
Now Melky Cabrera. Switch hitter. And normally a very good hitter, but off to a slow start this year.
Off to a slow start, but has always hit Cabrera very well. 5 for 10 in his career. Everybody felt this would be a nice addition for him should Cabrera go out there and stay healthy out in left field. They had the big right-hander Tank, who ended up going, and didn't he sign with the Toronto Blue Jays?
There's the pitch to Cabrera. Oh, good cut. Fouled right back. And he's in the hole 0-2. Dion Viciedo, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, Viciedo, yes.
Yeah, he went to Toronto. Kind of a late signing in the offseason.
Yeah, it was a minor league contract that he signed, yes. People were, looking at him to sign here because he was a right-handed bat.
The 0-2 to Cabrera just missed outside. Cabrera 5 for 24 to start the year. And normally you don't look at numbers this early in the season, but I do point out because last year he came out sizzling with a 346 average in his first 6 games of the year. And historically, the White Sox press notes point out that Melky Cabrera, in his last 33 early season games, he's batted .319.
Yeah, when he's locked in, the ball jumps off his bat.
Oh, it nails Carrasco, and he is down in a heap. And it might have caught him on the pitching hand.
It looked like he got it in the glove, but maybe not. That does not look good. I don't know if it came up and hit him in the face or not. But, can anything else go wrong here?
Carrasco in a lot of pain. James Quinlan, Indians trainer, out immediately on top of the situation. Not something anybody wants to see on a baseball field. That's the scariest thing in the game. When you get a comebacker hit that hard, you just don't have any time to react.
No, because by the time you're done releasing the baseball, you're 55 feet away. But that ball had to get him in the face because they're calling for somebody to come get him, and that's not a good sign.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, the glove, the hat, that's all going. This is not good.
You can see the concern on the face of Melky Cabrera, who hit the line drive.
Boy, I mean, it did hit the ground, right? It was a one-hopper. Am I right there? I thought it was a one-hopper. Or was it a line drive?
Thought it was a line drive right back at him.
Okay.
And I thought, again, one look from as far away as we saw, I thought he got the glove or the hand up first, but
it looked like it, but it was hard to tell from back here, and it was. It's a line drive, nothing. He could, it ended up getting him.
Got his fingertips, but it got him square in the face.
Yeah,
oh, boy.
It did. It looked like the cheekbone. Not a good sign. I thought it might have been off the ground. It was not. So now the bullpen that had a day off, is going to get back. It's McAllister up and throwing, and this is, boy, oh boy, what else could go wrong here?
Zach McAllister will get all the time he needs to get loose and get ready. Players obviously concerned for Carlos Carrasco in this situation. Medical staff, as I mentioned from the get-go, they were on top of it immediately.
Well, I mean, Terry Francona's just standing looking over. And look, Carrasco hasn't really moved. He's been on his stomach for a while there, and they're trying to get him to roll over. And they get him rolled over.
Well, depending on how much of a deflection he got, and it didn't appear to be much. If that ball caught him flush, I mean, at the very least, he's got to be a little bit dazed.
Oh my, I would imagine.
At the very least,
that's just like a hitter taking a ball in the face when he's thrown by a pitcher that you can't get out of the way of.
They've got
like
him
you say,
up.
you thought it might have been deflected. It might have tipped a finger or might have tipped a glove, but he took a direct hit to the cheek. And there you see on the left side of his face, and he is in pain. Boy, oh boy, and let's just hope. They're asking him questions, and you're right. You don't know. Oh, he's in some pain.
Not to mention, I know it comes with the territory. It's part of the job, but you don't expect the ball hit that hard right back at you.
Well, usually you get something on it or deflect it, and we witnessed it a couple of days ago where somebody got a glove up and made a catch, and they were so lucky. So Alfredo Simon, I think, in that one game he pitched, but oh boy, all right. This is going to make it a long night for that bullpen for the Indians.
So Carrasco will be taken for medical evaluation. We'll let you know just as soon as we hear anything. As Carrasco leaves with Indians head athletic trainer James Quinlan. Zach McAllister continues to warm in the bullpen, and he'll be coming into the ball game just as soon as he's ready. But Carrasco, 6 in the third innings, a shutout baseball, his first time out with 10 strikeouts. He was so good last year in the second half. High hopes, signed to a contract extension. Everything was really good in his world right up until that line drive off the bat of Melky Cabrera. And now the Indians will play the game that they've been playing a lot early in the year, wait and see. We'll take a timeout. Zach McAllister will be coming into the ball game to face the White Sox with one on, nobody out here, just underway at Progressive Field. Well, let's regroup. Top of the first. First two White Sox have reached. Adam Eaton, a little infield single towards second base that he was able to beat out. And then Melky Cabrera with a line drive right back up the middle that deflected off of Carlos Carrasco's. It looked like it caught him on the fingertip and then the webbing and then Karen right into his jaw. And he's been taken for further medical evaluation. And he was in what appeared to be considerable pain when he left the field.
Rightfully so. It's almost like a hitter getting hit right in the face. And, it doesn't bode well because now you got your number 2 starter that could possibly be lost for a period of time. And now I don't know what this guy's going to do. Because in the last series against the Tigers, the bullpen, they pitched 15 1/3 innings and threw 271 pitches. They were great in Houston. They only had to cover 6 1/3 innings in that series. But you have a quick turnaround, a day game tomorrow at noon, and then you have an off day again. So let's just hope that the news or anything we hear about Carlos Carrasco, if we should hear anything tonight, is going to be more positive than it was on Yan Gomes.
Meanwhile, the Cleveland Clinic call to the bullpen is for Zach McAllister. And he'll be coming in here in this first inning with 2 on, nobody out, facing Jose Abreu. McAllister made his first start of the year against the Detroit Tigers, and it did not go all that well. He was the Indian starter on opening day, and in 4 innings, he was roughed up. You have to wonder. I have to wonder, Rick, myself. Put yourself back in your playing shoes. Early in a game, you get one of your best pitchers knocked out of the game in a vicious play like that. Psychologically, I wonder what some of these guys are thinking right now. You've already lost Yan Gomes. Brantley's been sidelined for 5 games already this year.
You know what? You get out there and you're wanting to move past your last series coming off an off day. You're 2 hitters into the game, and this happens. They haven't had a chance to come into the dugout or anything to happen. They're going to have to really dig deep and say, let's go, boys. We got to pick it up, and they're going to a lot of guys are going to have to tighten up the bootstraps and pick it up. And you know what? I think they'll know that once they get into that dugout and have a chance to communicate. Let's go, boys.
Well, we'll see how they respond, but first things first, 2 on, nobody out. And here's Jose Abreu, the guy you don't want to see with people on base in this series. Abreu was the runaway choice for American League Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, rightfully so. Deserved everything he got last year because he had a spectacular year on a team that struggled.
To kind of put Abreu's rookie season in some historical perspective, he's the first rookie in Major League history to rank among the top 5 in the Triple Crown categories. So it's not like you look at him and say, well, he had good power or he had good ability to drive in runs or he did it all well.
Yes, he did.
And he's the only guy as a rookie to be in the top 5 in all 3 of those categories. For keys to the game, courtesy of Wayside Furniture.
Well, control the guys in front of them. They haven't done that because it's only been 2.
But that will be something that will be important in the 2 games. And then 3 we play in Chicago next week.
Right. We go to Chicago next week, and we get him 19 times overall. So this is a guy, a force you're going to have to reckon with, and a guy that you will see a lot.
McAllister ready with a 1-1. Out of play.
He's one of those guys, again, you can't pitch the same way. You have to constantly, change your pattern and mix it up with him because he makes adjustments on the fly, as good hitters do. Some hitters make adjustments pitch to pitch. Some will make them add bat to bat, and others make it game to game. But your good ones do it pitch to pitch, and he's one of them.
McAllister, time called. Now he's ready. And the 1-2. Fastball right down the middle, and Abreu is crossed up. One down. That's one of those ones, Rick, you always wonder, how in the world does he look at a ball right down the middle of the plate?
He had to be looking for a breaking ball. That's going to be our Circle K strikeout, and it's a heater right by the toughest out in that lineup. So McAllister comes in and gets the first hitter out.
Now Adam LaRoche. Left-handed bat. Already with a couple of homers on the year. Bounced it way in front of the plate, and both runners move up.
Well, there's a mistake. An off-speed pitch, a breaking ball that he spiked out in front. It had to go 55 feet. And now allows the runners to move up on a wild pitch. He got the strikeout. Look at that hit way in front of the plate on the breaking ball. Just.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how far out in front that was.
You talk about spiking a ball.
So now a fly ball gets a run home for Chicago. Or a ground ball to the right side will do the trick. Kipnis from the outfield grass throws him out. 1-0 Chicago. LaRoche with his fourth run batted in on the year, and there are 2 down in the inning. Melky Cabrera moves to third on that play.
Wild pitch certainly helps out the Sox.
I'm thinking, Rick, if there were still first and second, that might have been a double play ball.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure Kipnis might have been as far back with runners at first and second. They might have had that modified shift on. In any event, Chicago grabs the early lead. Avisaíl Garcia pops one up foul and out of play. Garcia had a really bad break last year, a torn labrum early in the season.
Yeah, it was like in the first series or so, wasn't it? Really early.
It was April 9th.
All right, we started then at the end of May, so it was...
End of March, yeah. Either way, didn't get a chance to really play much. When he does play, though, he's got some good ability. We saw him early in his career with Detroit, fouled right back.
Yeah, they made that trade. They were looking for some help in the outfield and a right-handed bat, and then they went after this guy. And pretty much his first season, missed most of the time because of the injury. But they expect big things from him. He's a guy that can stay on the baseball and use the whole field, and not a bad outfielder as well.
Now the 0-2 from McAllister. Low and away. It's never a good thing when you've got to have major surgery, and when you have a torn labrum, you know, that can't be a whole lot of fun to deal with. But when you have surgery for that, if you're right-handed, that's a best case scenario thing. You know, if you're gonna mess your shoulder up, don't make it be the one you got to throw with and really drive through the hitting zone, I would think, if you're right-handed.
Well, I don't know any surgery.
That's what I said. Neither one's good. But if you have to have a shoulder injury.
He fell on that, and all the weight came on it when he was diving for a ball coming in for it. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I've never had. I wouldn't want to have any.
The 2-2. I'll opt for option C. Yeah. No surgery.
Yeah, right. None of the above.
Melky Cabrera is the runner at third base. And with 2 down, White Sox already up 1-0. 2-2 pitch. Another bouncer a good 5-6 feet in front of the plate.
I don't know what it is with Zach when it comes to the breaking ball. I mean, for a guy, he just consistently can't throw that pitch. I mean, he's a fastball pitcher. Now, the second one, I know you want to throw it and get it down in the zone. Oh, is that a knuckle?
Yeah.
Is that the knuckle curve? So he may be putting a lot too much pressure on that one finger he's trying to get the spin on. I don't know. I didn't know he threw it like that, to be honest with you. That looked like a knuckle curve to me from that shot.
Yep. A lot like the one
or
Cody Allen throws.
Yeah, a spike curve or whatever.
3-2 pitch. Right back up the middle, 2-0 White Sox. Garcia with his second RBI on the year.
Well, you know, after you just spike that one and you make it a full count, you got to come back with the fastball. And Garcia was ready for it, so close the book now. Both those runs will be charged to Carrasco. You know, he threw 2 of those spiked curveballs, I guess you'd call them, in this sequence. Both of them were 55 feet in front. So when you know he can't throw that pitch for a strike, and he's got to throw a strike in a situation, it's going to be a fastball. So you try and stay short, get to it, and he did. So he got a base hit and kept the inning going.
Runner goes. Perez with a pretty good throw, and they got him. Garcia erased by Roberto Perez, and the inning is over. For the White Sox, a couple of runs on 3 hits, nobody left. Now the Indians coming to bat. Nothing lead, and we'll take a look at the Indians starting lineup for Terry Francona, brought to you by Progressive. Michael Bourne in the leadoff spot. Mike Aviles will bat second. You see he's had good success against Jose Quintana. Jason Kipnis third. Then it's Carlos Santana, Jerry Sands, Brandon Moss, Ryan Rayburn, Roberto Perez, and Jose Ramirez round it out.
Tonight's Northern Ohio Honda starting pitcher is Jose Quintana, making a start for the White Sox. He is 0-0 this year with a 9 ERA. Has faced Kansas City, but last year 9-11. 3.32 ERA, the king of the no decisions. But this is a left-hander. He's 3-0 in his career against the Indians. He's got a fastball, slider, cutter, changeup. He can be tough. He doesn't walk very many guys. So, you know, the Indians know him. They're used to seeing this guy. We'll see what he has to offer tonight. Let's check out the defense, which is brought to you by Chrysler. For the Sox, it'll be Cabrera in left, Eaton is in center, Garcia in right, Gillespie at third, Ramirez at short, Bonifacio at second, Abreu is at first, and Tyler Flowers doing the catching.
Michael Bourne will lead it off for Cleveland.
This guy has 40 career no decisions. Remember, he had 17 in 1 year back in 2013 for the White Sox.
on the appeal. Did they say he went around? 0-2 the count for Bourne. Quintana's 2-strike delivery is low. Jose Quintana, you could say, is the king of the no decision. He leads the majors since 2012 with 39 no decisions. I mean, you look at his numbers overall, Rick, every year his ERA is a little bit over 3, but he never has the big wins because obviously they don't score a lot when he pitches.
Right.
Yeah.
And 39 is in the media guide, and his first outing this year was a no decision against Kansas City, and he gave up 5 runs in his 5 innings.
So you could say he earned that no decision.
Yeah, that one he earned.
But, I mean, his rookie year, 10 no decisions. He was the first pitcher in the modern era to work 8 scoreless 3 times and a no decision in all 3 of those outings. So
yeah,
it's followed him.
Yeah, usually you have that one pitcher where they score you some runs throughout
year
the course
to year.
of the year.
It moves around.
Yeah, it changes, right.
It's following him.
Well, he's waiting for it. He's you know what? You keep battling, you keep pitching well, eventually it's got to turn. But a left-hander, the third left-hander of 4 that the Indians will face. They'll face another one tomorrow at noon, and they're looking for their
Bourne rung up by home plate umpire Brian Knight, and he doesn't like it.
Well, it was, you know what, when you look at the pitch before that, they were very similar. Here you go. That's going to be down. And yeah, I know it. You see, he goes, and he gets the late call there by Brian Knight. Brings him up, and it looked like it could have been low, could have been away. But he is called out. He can't believe it, but you already discarded the bat. Not much you could do.
Mike Aviles takes a strike. Aviles, we pointed out when we ran the starting lineups at you that he's 8 for 19 against Quintana. Takes it low, 2-1. Out of play to the right side, 2-2. Game 7 for the Indians. Game 5 played for Mike Aviles. The 2-2. And that's out of play to the right. You can call him an extra man, but Aviles is almost like an everyday irregular regular.
Well, he's going to get his 350 to 400 at bats, which is pretty darn good if you're considered an extra man, in my opinion. Second, short, third, any outfield position at any given time, and he doesn't shy away from it, and he does a really good job at doing it. That's hard to do. You know, where your manager has confidence putting you into any one of those positions, even though it's not your main position. You know, usually you're going to have some fallout or a drawback at one of the positions, but he's pretty solid no matter where he goes.
Yeah, and you know that just over the course of a normal season, if everybody stays healthy, you kind of pick and choose. You know where you're going to get your spots. But then you add the component of, well, if so-and-so goes down, and the Indians have already had too many injuries.
Well, last year, for example, they had Asdrubal Cabrera go down, and he had to play for about a month at shortstop. And he filled in quite well.
3-2 pitch. Right back up the middle, and Aviles really good at bat. And the Indians have their first base runner with a 1-out single.
There you go. That fastball was elevated. It was belled high. It stayed middle of the plate. Look at it on our Wendy slow motion cam, and he goes right back up the middle. Ball got down near the trademark, but he didn't try to pull it. He just, slaps it up the middle, used the big part of the field. So a pretty good at-bat there by McAllister.
And it will give Jason Kipnis an opportunity to bat with a man on base. Kipnis has hit in 5 straight now. Good, consistent offensive approach so far this year for Kipnis. Aviles draws a throw.
Tell you what, Quintana's pretty quick to home plate, too. Got that little slide step, doesn't pick the leg up. At least he didn't on that time. Young pitchers, when they come up, some of them, you have to learn how to control the running game. I don't care if you're left-handed or right-handed. But if you're a left-hander and you can control it and slide step like that, boy, you make your life a lot easier up at this level as far as guys trying to run and do things, because you minimize opportunities, giving your catcher a chance to throw out runners. And not that a lot of teams run anymore, but they're starting to run more.
And I think the thing that we're seeing more of is if you're a left-hander and you don't have a great move, don't throw over.
Well,
or throw over less.
See what happened last night, don't you? With John Lester in Chicago. He threw over for the first time in about 2 years. Threw it down the right field line.
Well, and I think so you run that risk if you don't have a good move. And you also run the risk of everybody seeing you don't have a very good move.
Right.
So
the more you throw over there, the more you're going to show them. Yes, I know what you're saying.
I think
Cliff Lee used to do that when he was here. He wouldn't throw to first base. He had a terrible pickoff move. So he just quit throwing. That's right. You hold it or vary it.
The 2-2. Kipnis smokes it. Center field. Eaton back. Still going back. Makes the catch. And forgetting how many outs there were is Mike Aviles. And they're going to throw all the way back to first for an inning-ending double play. So no runs a hit. Nobody left. And after one, it's the White Sox 2 and the Indians nothing. Well, the White Sox have the early 2-0 lead. And as we go to the second inning, Alexei Ramirez, Connor Gillespie, and Tyler Flowers due up. Zach McAllister came on unexpectedly in the first after Carlos Carrasco was knocked out of the game on a line drive by Melky Cabrera. Ramirez checks, it's a called strike. Down low. Two balls and a strike. Alexei Ramirez along with Jose Abreu, the two Cuban-born players in this Chicago everyday lineup.
Did you see where Ramirez ended up wearing number 9 on opening day in Chicago for Minnie Minoso and honoring him? The Cubs lost Ernie Banks and the White Sox lost Minnie Minoso, who was 90 years old and played in, 5 different decades or 6?
One-hop smash to short. Nicely played
pick
by Jose Ramirez.
Nice pick.
One down.
Those are the ones I used to run from.
Let's go back downstairs to Andre.
Matt, Zach McAllister's out here in a situation he didn't want to be in, but I can tell you after starting Friday, he was frustrated because he felt like after the spring he had, he was ready to go in the 2015 season. The struggle continues to be the off-speed pitch, and you guys were talking in that last inning about that knuckle curve. He's got to find something, but he's fired up to be out there right now.
Well, the one thing that everybody who's been around him will tell you, whether it's Mickey Callaway or Terry Francona, no one questions McAllister's competitiveness, his desire. It's just a matter of can he get the feel for something to take the hitters off his fastball.
Well, he has to. You have to change speeds at this level if you're going to start. You have to have more than basically one pitch. And, I know he's working at it. And right now he showed you that curve. It's like the spike curve. And that's what he's done with it. He spiked it twice. But he'll get a feel for it. It's a feel pitch.
Yeah.
If he can't develop that changeup consistently, which I think would be an easier pitch to develop. I don't know. It's not that they're not working with him. That's for sure. Like you say, he's a hard worker. But it's a matter of finding it.
Cody Allen.
There you go.
Cody Allen throws that spike curve or whatever you want to call it. And he told me in spring training the reason he went to that grip is it feels like he can spin it better. Gives him the ability to really, at the very end, make the ball spin more, which gives it better downward action.
Yeah, but as we say, every pitcher's hands are different sizes. And, it's all a matter of feel and grip when it comes to off-speed pitches and pressure on cutters and that. McAllister, a big guy. I'm sure his hands are bigger. He's got to find out something for him.
The 1-1. Outside.
But, he was throwing that pitch a lot against the Tigers, the cutter. And just because, we watched the cutter Corey Kluber do it doesn't mean everybody can do it. And it's a field pitch for him, and he was inconsistent with it. But the cutter, to me, slows it down, and it makes it more of a BP fastball if it doesn't run, and it's on the plate.
When you use that terminology, feel, I think about what Oral Hershiser used to talk about when he was first learning the changeup. He said, I remember they were teaching him the circle change grip. He said, I'd get it in my hand, and I'd have it behind my head getting ready to throw it, and it was like, I don't feel like I know where the ball's going when it leaves my hand. That's the feel. You don't feel like you have command or control of it, which is why guys tinker with their delivery and with the grip. Boy, that ball was really smoked by Tyler Flowers. Good line drive single to right field for Flowers and a 2-out base runner for Chicago.
Well, there you see the fastball. It's right down the middle. And Tyler Flowers is a good fastball hitter. He's down in the lineup, but it's a big man that likes the fastball. He stayed on it and hit a line drive right over the head of Jason Kipnis. That's 4 hits now for the White Sox.
Emilio Bonifacio, switch hitter. Batting out of the 9 hole. Takes inside, ball 1. High fly ball right field. Routine for Brandon Moss. No runs, a hit, a man left. Middle of the second, Chicago 2, Cleveland nothing.
And this year with MLB.com at bat on your smartphone or tablet. Stay connected with live radio, broadcast, stats, breaking news, and more. Download MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball.
All right, we'll go now to the home half of the second. Carlos Santana, Jerry Sands, and Brandon Moss due up for the Tribe. Santana has collected a hit in 3 consecutive games, now going 5 for his last 11 at the plate. And Quintana's pitch in for a strike. Downstairs, and it was sinking down past the knees, and Santana went after it, could not catch up. That one really had some run to it at 92 miles an hour.
He can run it inside to the right-handers, yes. I don't know if it's a cutter or it's just how his fastball moves, because it's 92, and that's a pretty good heater.
Shoots it foul over toward the Chicago dugout, ricocheted up into the crowd. Quintana ahead in the count, 1-2. Santana not going to chase that ball in the dirt to even the count now. Jose Quintana has become very reliable and durable for Chicago. Back-to-back 200-plus innings pitched seasons, 30-plus starts. Since 1991, the only other left-handed starters to do it in multiple seasons, along with Quintana, are Wilson Alvarez, Mike Sorotka, John Danks, and Mark Burley. Those other guys all did it twice. Burley did it 11 times.
Well, yes, he was there forever. And Yeah, they signed Quintana to a long-term contract. Signed through 2018, and he has a couple of club options after that. So they locked up the young pitcher, feeling that he was going to be around a while.
And obviously they recognize he's got the mental toughness to deal with the fact that they don't get a lot of run support. You know, some guys that might bother him and it might affect him. He just keeps going out, taking care of business. Boy, Santana with a good at bat. Draws a walk. Quintana had him down on the count, but he works it for a walk here, and the Tribe has their leadoff man aboard. Injury report brought to you by the injury lawyers at Elkino. Don't like the way that list is growing, and we might soon be adding another name to it. After Carlos Carrasco left the game in the first inning when he was struck by a line drive off the bat of Melky Cabrera.
Yeah, that's a list we wish we didn't have to report.
Jerry Sands gets an opportunity now with one on. Nobody out here in the second. The right-handed hitter takes the strike. Down in the dirt. Good scoop that time by Tyler Flowers. Jerry Sands, originally a 25th round pick of the Dodgers back in 2008. And then in 2012, he was part of that massive player swap between the Red Sox and the Dodgers, and the down low. He ended up going to Boston and the Josh Beckett deal. Carl Crawford, Adrian Gonzalez. Remember, there were players going left and right everywhere. Red Sox turned around and dealt him into the Pirates for Joel Hanrahan, along with some other players. Eventually, the Tampa Bay Rays got him off waivers from the Pirates. Indians signed him as a free agent in December. Had a pretty solid camp, opened some eyes. And in his first game as an Indian, drove in 4 runs. 3-1 pitch. High fly ball, right field. Avisail Garcia is there to make the catch, 1 away. Let's go downstairs to Andre once again. When do you think we'll see Michael Brantley?
If you ask my opinion, I'll say Friday night when we get to Minnesota.
All right.
Terry Francona said things are trending in a good way for Michael Brantley. He came in, worked out yesterday, took part in batting practice today. He says if he plays tomorrow, it means he feels 100%. Don't expect that with the day off coming Thursday. So I would say, Matt, D-Day is Friday for Michael Brantley and his lower back pain.
Well, Andre, we always value your opinion, so we appreciate that.
I did work with the Browns.
Start out that 10-day road trip. Hopefully we do get him back soon.
Well, look, he was their best player a year ago. Most consistent every day. If he misses a game tomorrow, what you said, that'll equal all the games he missed of a year ago.
Right. He played 156 last year, so yeah. Yeah, you have to be in there and play. That's how you get 200 hits. That's how he put up the numbers he put up last year, and he was very consistent doing it. But if you have a bad back, no telling what's going on. It's a mystery to us because it started in spring training, and it was supposed to be nothing. Unfortunately, it seems like it's carried over into the year. That's something.
Well, the problem, I'm sure, is that if you don't get a handle on it and get it quieted down now, then it could really
that's
linger.
why I don't see him playing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because you get tomorrow off, and then Thursday again, and then he should be ready. You err on the side of caution. They didn't. You know, he wanted to play opening day because he missed a couple games in Houston. And look what happened. He ended up missing some more, so they won't do it again.
Brandon Moss with Santana at first and 1 out here in the second inning. Boy, Quintana's already thrown a lot of pitches. 17 balls, 17 strikes. But he just threw it by Moss to even the count at 2-2.
Well, and he doesn't walk a lot of people. He keeps the ball in the ballpark, which is something when you're pitching in, in
U.S. Cellular
U.S.
Field.
Cellular Field, right. I was going to say Comiskey Park.
It's all right. You can say it. I won't tell.
I could, but then it tells you how old I am.
Moss went
Yeah,
around.
I thought he did.
That is out number 2. Second strikeout for Quintana.
Elevated the fastball. Threw one by him before and just a little bit higher, and it caught in between Brandon Moss, and he knew he couldn't hold up. So he will go down as out number 2 and strikeout victim number 2.
Ryan Rayburn, the DH tonight. Takes the ball down in the dirt. Rayburn making his 4th start as the DH this year. He started 1 game in the outfield. Just missed outside. Great clip of our game on Sunday. Ryan Rayburn with a line drive up the gut, drove in a couple of runs. Also scored a run, also doubled. With Santana still at first and 2 down now. Quintana goes in under the hands right on the corner for a strike to Rayburn. Fouls it right back, and it's now 2-2.
That's something that Ryan did a lot last year. You know, where the first year he came over, it seemed like he hit everything in sight off left-handers. So he fouled off a lot of pitches, good pitches. And the reason why that pitch count's getting up because Quintana's thrown at least 5 or more pitches to every hitter so far.
That'll do it in a hurry. This is only the 7th hitter he's faced, and he's at 40 pitches. Another full count.
That's the 4th full count. So you say 7 hitters, 4 full counts. That'll get you up there in a hurry.
He's now average, after this pitch, he'll average 6 pitches per batter.
That's good math.
So how about you like that, didn't you?
Okay, now you can turn your phone off.
Here's the payoff. Santana runs. Strike 3 called. 3rd strikeout for Quintana. 2-0 White Sox after 2. third inning with the White Sox in front 2-0. Top of the order due for Chicago. I apologize to those of you who feel this may be repetitive, but for folks who might be tuning in after getting home from work or after dinner, Carlos Carrasco did start this game tonight, but the second batter of the game, Melky Cabrera, hit a line drive back to him. It caught him in the jaw, and he was taken from the field. And we're waiting yet to get further results on the extent of the injury.
Boom, second hitter of the game.
It was not good.
No, it was ugly, and he stayed there for a while. They had to cart him off the field. We're waiting to hear an update on it. Don't know when we'll get it, but just a terrible sign right there. And what else? You know, he's holding that side of his jaw. He got hit on the other side as he's going off. You know, he got hit on that left side.
Yeah.
It's
might have moved some parts around in there.
It was ugly.
Cabrera takes a strike inside corner from McAllister, and it's 1-1. To left field, Jerry Sands is there. 2 down. Take a look at our stat of the game, brought to you by Buick. And Jose Abreu last year, I mentioned he was top 5 in the Triple Crown categories, 5th in average, 3rd homers, 4th in ribbies. And he finished 1st in slugging percentage. The 1-0. High pop right field. Moss coming in. McAllister cruises through the third on just 7 pitches. 2-0 White Sox. Just a reminder, if you're enjoying a cold one tonight, to stay tuned later in the game for Miller Time, brought to you by Miller Lite. Zach McAllister talking
nice
things
quick
over
inning
with
there.
Mickey Callaway. I mean, he breezed through it, didn't he? 7 pitches.
Nice quick inning there.
Jose Quintana has allowed 1 hit. He's walked 1, struck out 3, and he's thrown a ton of pitches already. 42 through the first 2 innings. Roberto Perez
Well, the Indians looking for their first win against a left-handed starter this year. Right now they're 0-3. And offensively they're hitting just .216 with no homers and 11 RBIs. So, you know, it takes away some of their pop, some of their extra base power.
Right at Alexi Ramirez, who scoops it up, throws out Roberto Perez. One away. Our T-Mobile game changer is the last 2 seasons here at home. The Indians have dominated Chicago, winning 15 out of 18. Now, I mentioned that the last 7 games overall between these 2 teams have been decided by 2 runs or less, and the Indians have won 6 of them. So you look at the numbers and think, boy, the Indians have owned them. Well, yeah, it always, at the end of the day, it's the W's and L's that matter most, but they've been very close games.
2 years, would they win 15 out of the 18?
Well, 2 years ago, the season series was ridiculously lopsided.
Was ridiculous. This is a different team they have this year. And I understand the numbers, and you got to look at them and go that way. But, boy, every year's different. You got to go out and earn it because they want a payback. I remember last year they came back after they only won 3, and they won 3 of the first 5, I think.
Strike to the outside corner, and the White Sox made more noise maybe than any team in baseball in the offseason as far as overhauling
they
their
made
roster.
A lot of nice signs. They got Samardzija, starting pitcher. They got a closer in Robertson. They signed LaRoche. They signed Milky Cabrera. They signed Zach Duke. Yes, they did. They made a lot of noise. Robin Ventura has to be happy with the additions.
Not a 5-star headline grabber, but Emilio Bonifacio. You know,
yeah.
They
realized that they had to do something. And, you know, their payroll, too, being in this division is $115 million, I'd say. You know, you compete with the Tigers and Kansas City. They're made a huge jump, as we all know, last year.
Connor Gillespie throws it wide of the mark, and Ramirez will hold at first. He thought about maybe going towards second, but Bonifacio, second baseman, alertly moving over there into foul ground to grab it.
Either that ball sailed on him when he got rid of it, because I saw Ramirez joking about it after that last ground ball, and it took off, or it was just a bad throw right from the start. It's a routine play. I don't know if that ball had some run to it, because that's a big man stretching out for the ball. Tough to tell from that angle. That was offline, so he would have had a long way to go. That might have been a bad throw right from the start by Gillespie. So you got to give him an error.
So 1 on, 1 out. Michael Bourne to the plate. He was out on strikes his first time up, and he was not happy about it. Looked like a ball that was off the plate, but it was called a strike to start the game, and it ended his at-bat. Oh, good jump by Ramirez. Flowers trying to throw him out, and he's safe at second base. Ramirez with his 3rd steal of the year. And he just did beat the tag of Alexi Ramirez, who made that a very close play.
He had a really good jump. You see Ramirez in front of the bag to catch the shortstop. He couldn't tag him, though. He had to catch the ball first. And anytime that ball hits the dirt, you have to bring your glove up before you can go into the tag. And it gives that runner, it's almost like an extra step or half a step.
Good second look by our crew, and he never did tag him, period.
That's true. That was a great shot right there where you can see. Ramirez did a good job of coming in front of the bag and getting the short hop coming up. He's a good shortstop. He's getting up in years, but I'll tell you what, he's solid.
So Jose Ramirez in the scoring position now for Michael Bourne.
He's had 11 balls that he has bounced in front of the plate so far. So Flowers has been picking them for a while. When you get base runners, you got to make sure you at least keep that ball in front.
Now the 1-1 to Bourne. And a foul out of play, or actually over toward the Chicago dugout. And now Michael shakes his head in disappointment, down on the count 1-2.
Well, you just got to put up a tough at-bat now. Try and put the ball in play.
Throw back, but Ramirez back in plenty of time. Bourne trying to shake the Blues against the left-handers. He's just 1 for 12 to start the year against Southpaws. And he strikes out here, 2 down. He forgot how many outs there were. He was ready to head to the field.
I'll tell you what.
4th strikeout for Quintana.
He chases that breaking ball out of the zone. He bounced another one. Flowers is getting his job of blocking him.
Well, Mike Aviles has the Indians' only hit tonight. Came back in the 1st inning. And it was a product of a very good at-bat. And that's been the theme tonight. Indians hitters have been deep in a lot of counts.
Yeah, a lot of pitches thrown, a lot of deep counts. That's one way, you know, they used to be where let's work the pitcher, the starting pitcher, you get into that bullpen early. But now you get into some bullpens you don't want to get into them. You want the starters there.
The 0-1. Mike might have chased one up out of the zone. And he's quickly in the hole, 0-2. Yeah, they used to talk about the soft underbelly in the bullpen, those middle inning relievers. Even those guys now in a lot of bullpens are coming in with some high octane.
Yeah, because they're not going to pitch that much if your starters go out there and give you any kind of length. I mean, every team's going to run into a spot throughout the course of the year where your starters are going to struggle maybe 1 or 2 times through the rotation where that bullpen or the longmen get taxed. But for the most part.
The 1-2 downstairs. Well, I mean, I guess if you look back, especially over the last, let's just say 20 years, to take a chunk of baseball history, you have to have a good bullpen. But at one time it was you just better have a good, let's say, setup guy and closer. Now you better have that 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning.
Well, it all comes into matchups now. Boy, he continues. When he misses, he bounces it. He's not afraid. That's having confidence in your catcher, and that's a big man back there, Tyler Flowers. And he has, I'll tell you what, this is only the 3rd inning, and he's had 13 balls, 14 balls now in the dirt that he's had to go out and throw that body in front of.
Well, we talked about McAllister, and that's about where he was.
Yeah.
Short hopping home plate from.
He's spiking them as well.
The 3-2 for Aviles. And a foul over by Tribe's dugout.
See, first time up, Mike got himself a high fastball. It was easy for him to handle. He had to really work to get to that 3-2 pitch, which was down in the zone. When the ball is down in the zone, it makes the hitter use his legs, and you really have to go out and get it and stay on it if you're going to hit it hard, let alone find a hole.
Three-two pitch. And it's ball 4. So an error and a walk, and the Indians have the tying run at first with 2 down in the 3rd. And Jason Kipnis will be the batter. Kipnis hit the ball pretty hard his first time up, but it ended up in a kind of bizarre double play because Mike Aviles just forgot how many outs there were.
That was just bad base running by Aviles. Kipnis tell you what, Kip has hit the ball pretty well so far early this part of the season. Hasn't had a whole lot of luck to show for it. You just hope you don't get disappointed and try and do something different, because he's hit some line drives. He's stayed on the ball. He's using the opposite field. He's put some good swings on the ball.
Kipnis takes. It's low, ball one.
You look at the first inning here. Aviles is just going to take off. Kipnis hits it right on the nose, right into the tracks of Eaton. But look at Mike saying, "Oh man, that's embarrassing." It goes as an 8-3 double play. Not knowing how many outs there were. That'll be a fine in Kangaroo Court.
And that's up and away, 2-0. I wish we could bring Gary Bell in to do the Tribe's Kangaroo Court once.
Oh, bring him in from San Antonio.
Yeah.
Hey, Ding Dong, if you're watching, we got you. We need a court. We need a judge.
Throwback, but Ramirez very alertly beats the throwback.
You know, speaking of Gary Bell, he was supposed to come see us when we were in Houston.
I know, and you waited up all night for him.
No, he asked me to get him tickets. I did, and he said, "Oh, I can't make it now." Well, thanks.
Kipnis lifts it to left. Melky Cabrera makes the grab. No runs, no hits. 2 men left through 3. Chicago 2, Indians nothing.
It started just $10 for kids 12 and under with the purchase of an adult ticket. Kids tickets are located in the new family deck here at Progressive Field. Just log on to Indians.com and check out the information.
Down on the dirt. Today's Levin player profile features Adam LaRoche. Signed a 2-year deal in the offseason. Last 3 seasons in Washington. Smashed up the middle and off the glove of Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, that ball was smoked. Ramirez was there. He just couldn't hold on to it. That ball hit very well.
His dad was, well, you're one of your teammates, right?
Yeah, Dave LaRoche, left-handed pitcher here, was a closer here for a while, a couple of years. 9 seasons of 20 or more homers.
Avisail Garcia, RBI single with 2 outs in the first inning, made it a 2-0 Chicago lead.
Another wild pitch.
And the ball gets away and down to second goes LaRoche.
It ended up costing them a couple of runs back in the first inning after he got the first out of the inning. A wild pitch moved both runners up, and eventually they came around to score because of that. No, that one hit the dirt. It was that tough, but it got by Perez.
To Ramirez. He's going to go to third. Oh, a nice play by Jose Ramirez.
I like that. I like that a lot. And it was aggressive play, but it's knowing the base runner. LaRoche did the right thing. If he had better speed, he would have been able to beat it. This is going to be our McDonald's. I'm loving it because of the defense of Ramirez here. He realized who was running, and he had time to make that throw to third base, and Aviles was over there waiting for the throw. That ball was, sometimes when it goes in front of you, you can make it, but LaRoche not quick enough. Need a little more speed than that. That's a good play by Ramirez.
Got him by the hair on his chinny chin.
There's a lot of that.
Beards are really back in vogue these days, aren't they?
Yeah.
Guys,
everybody
wears
wears
guys with some serious beard work out there. You ever grow a beard?
No. No.
How about a mustache?
No.
The 1-0 to Alexi Ramirez. You had enough hair on your head. You need to mess around with stuff on your face, right?
I just never could or never did.
70s, man, it was all about
unless you
individual
played for the
expression.
Oakland A's, yeah.
Now they got after it.
Well, they got paid to grow those mustaches out there. What, a couple $100 by Charlie O.
Yeah. Bubblegum cards back then were the best because guys had crazy hair coming out from under their hats.
Yeah, it was the 70s.
3-0. Taken all the way. It's in the dirt. So after the really good play by Ramirez to cut down the lead runner, McAllister walks Alexei Ramirez on 4 pitches, and now 2 on, 1 out for Connor Gillespie. And Indians have activity in the bullpen. Nick Hagedorn is up and getting loose.
Well, Gillespie, he's one that ever since he was acquired by the White Sox, he's always seemed to play very well against the Indians.
In off the plate. Arcia in the driver's seat. And Connor Gillespie last year hit .396 against the Indians.
I remember him. He's always on base. Look at it, 267 against the rest of the league, .396 against the Indians.
Low, below the knees. And then McAllister's behind 2-0.
Now it's 8 straight balls now by McAllister. You know, it's one thing when he's coming out of that bullpen, you know, where he's a power city and that velocity goes up, but he could be running out of gas.
Caught the outside corner.
So he's pretty much even. When you look at it, 24 balls, 23 strikes.
Just missed low, and it's 3-1. So 2 on with only 1 out and a 3-1 count for Gillespie. Swings and pops it up. Center fielder Michael Bourne makes the grab. 2 down. Boy, is that a huge out for McAllister and the Tribe from a 3-1 count with 2 on and all the momentum on the White Sox side. That's a big out.
Yes, it is.
And now Tyler Flowers to the plate. But as we've seen so many times in baseball, it's only as big as the next guy. You get that second out, everybody says, oh, that's a big out. But if you don't get the third out and he gets the big hit, then.
But you can't lose concentration there. This is where you have to really. You're right. It was a tough out. He made the pitch he had to make to get the pop up, but you got to close out the inning here.
Tyler Flowers and a line drive single to right his first time up. Broke his bat, and Ramirez can't get to it. Just off the end of his glove, and the White Sox will get another run home. 3-0 Chicago. Well, a broken bat liner that seemingly had eyes just beyond the outstretched diving reach of Jose Ramirez.
Well,
and Chicago gets another run in.
That's how the inning started, as a matter of fact. It was a ball off the glove of Ramirez. It shatters the bat of Flowers. But again, you get another 2-out base hit to drive in a run like they did in the first inning. And that was the Achilles heel for this pitching staff against the Tigers. It was the 2-out hitting by the Tigers, and we've got two 2-out RBIs here for the White Sox as well. McAllister's day is over.
So we've got a timeout for a pitching change. McAllister, who came on in relief of Carrasco in the first, goes 3 2/3. Now Nick Hagedorn when we come back. 3-0 Chicago. We're in the fourth inning. They've got runners at first and second to the White Sox. 2 down. And the new Tribe pitcher is left-hander Nick Hagedorn, making his 4th appearance of the year. Switch hitter Emilio Bonifacio will be the batter. Fly to right is only time up. And I think, as you pointed out, Rick, it was probably more a case where it just looked like maybe Zach was out of juice.
Well, you come in from the bullpen and you're throwing as hard as you can for as long as you can. Unfortunately, he had to come in the first inning. And although he was stretched out as a starter, he threw, 8 consecutive balls before he found the strike zone. That's not him. Normally, he's pounding the strike zone. So I would have to say he was all out there, and I would think he did. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did not run out of gas, but his command wasn't there where he wanted it to be.
1-0 pitch. Swung and foul, tipped into the glove of Perez. Three runs on 6 hits for Chicago. No runs, just 1 hit so far for the Tribe. We're in the 4th.
I'll tell you what else hurt him was the 2 wild pitches he threw. You go back to the first inning, you move the guy up from first and second to second and third. They both scored, and then the wild pitch here in this inning. Even though they did get the runner at third, then the walk hurt him.
Now the 2-1. Pop back out of play. I know, too, Rick, that every guy that goes to the bullpen, with probably the exception of the guys who pitch the 8th and 9th innings, they have to be ready to go at any time.
Right.
But you're not sitting in the bullpen, I don't care who you are, and anticipating that in the first inning your pitcher's going to get knocked out and I'm going to be in there.
That's true.
But McAllister, that's the role he fell into tonight, and he did a pretty good job.
Well, I'm not going to say it's easy. You're right. When you're in the third hitter of the game.
Well, it's a full count now for Bonifacio, and the runners will be off on a 3-2 pitch. Alexei Ramirez at second base, Tyler Flowers at first. Ramirez runs well. Flowers, well, he's a catcher, and he could use a head start. Now Hagedorn steps off. Now the 3-2.
Yep.
Got him to chase up high. Strikes him out to end the inning. A run, 2 hits, 2 men left. 3-0 Chicago, middle of the 4th. Head to the bottom of the fourth. Here's our AT&T U-verse rewind. The big man, Timothy Mozgov, throwing out tonight's ceremonial first pitch in 45 games with the Cavs this year.
Does he throw a hook shot?
He's
threw
averaged
a strike.
Better than 10 points a game, 7 rebounds.
Yeah, what a nice pickup for the Cavs. That was nice.
We thought maybe he'd throw a little hook shot in there. That would have been sweet.
Look, he's bigger than Slider. That away.
Well, he put his arm around Corey Kluber, and we thought, look how small Corey looks next to him. Corey's no small fry.
That's did a nice job. Threw a strike. They got an 8 o'clock game tomorrow night, I think, their last home game.
You are correct, sir.
And playoffs will begin. Oh, look at Tommy chirping in, wanting to tell me everything that's going on. Okay, Tommy Banks. Let's play 2.
He'll be working 2 for the price of 4. Carlos Santana has walked tonight in his only trip. Spun him out of the way. And a count 2-0. Santana drives one, left center field. Eaton moving into the gap, and he will make the catch. 1 away.
Catch a game at the new 2-story bar with our $13 district ticket presented by Sports Time Ohio. And the bar is the best place in town to grab a cold one. And with the district ticket, your first drink is on us. Go to Indians.com and get your tickets.
Jerry Sands flied to right, his only time up. Popped away from Flowers. Pitch up high, 1-0. Now the 1-0. At the knees, perfect pitch. Sands signed a minor league deal with the Tribe in December and really had a good camp. Swung the bat well throughout the month of March.
Well, one of the last cuts, really, when they broke camp. They weren't sure if they were going to go with the extra pitcher or bring that right-handed bat. Well, it didn't take long.
Well, he's got a broken bat single here with 1 out on the 4th. Only the second hit of the night for Cleveland.
Yeah, he gets in that running fastball in on the hands, but he has that approach where he tries to hit the ball up the middle the other way. Broke his bat, but he gets a base hit.
So Sands aboard with 1 out for Brandon Moss, who struck out his first time up. Fouled right back out of play. In the dirt, and another good stop by Flowers. Boy, Flowers has been some kind of active behind the plate tonight. Quintana still hasn't been what you would call pinpoint with his command. He wanted that one up high and threw it in the dirt.
Yeah, by no means. He has bounced a dozen and a half balls in the dirt out in front of the plate.
Still for Santana, 37 strikes, 34 balls, almost 50-50 through 70 pitches. So he's never really put it together, and yet he's only allowed 2 hits.
I know one person that's going to be in the ice tub after the game. That's Tyler Flowers, because he's working hard back there. We're in just the 4th inning, and this guy has been all over the place. And a quick turnaround with the noon game tomorrow.
Yeah.
Don't know if he'll catch, but
Moss takes a strike, 2-2. White Sox 3-man shift on the right side for Moss. Gillespie, third baseman, over at the shortstop position. Sometimes you'll see the infield shift and the outfield will play a hitter the opposite way. White Sox outfield plays Moss almost straight up as you can get in deep. Now the 2-2. In tight. We've seen pitchers do that to Moss a lot here in the 7th game. Really make an effort to go in off the plate.
Right. You got to do that because he's slightly open with that stance. I like to pound him with stuff upstairs and inside if they can. You know, if he gets himself or he'll swing at it. But, you know, you get it down in his zone. He's got his little nitro zone down there that he loves. But you'll see.
3-2. Took something off and strikes him out for the second time tonight. 5 Ks in all for Quintana. And there are 2 down here in the 4th inning. Ryan Rayburn. Yeah, that's fisted foul off to the right. Anthony Swarzak getting loose for the Tribe. Rayburn was rung up back in the 2nd inning. And a swing and a miss. We're in the bottom of the 4th. And the White Sox lead at 3-0. They've out hit the Indians 6-2. Way outside. And that's back out of play. Stays 1-2. Chicago, they opened the season against Kansas City and were absolutely trounced. 10-1 in the opener, then lost 7-5 and 4-1 as the Royals swept them. Then they went home, and their home opener against Minnesota, they get shut out by the Twins 6-0. Bounce back, though, to win the last 2. That one gets by Flowers, finally.
Well, you know what happened? I don't think it hit the ground. He was waiting for it to hit out front. It didn't look like it from my angle. I don't know if that hit the ground or not. It's close, but he's had so many out in front of the plate. No, it really didn't. He was just shifting over.
He was expecting it to bounce, and it bounced right at the base of his glove instead of out in front.
Look at out in front of home plate. How many bullet holes there are out in front of it from the ball bouncing in front.
Somebody's been practicing their wedge work. 2-2. Rayburn clobbers one to the gap in left center. That'll go to the wall. Jerry Sands scores. Rayburn into second with a 2-out RBI double, and the Indians are on the board. Rayburn's 4th run batted in on the year, his 2nd double of the season. And the Indians finally break through against Quintana. And it comes with that big old 2-out RBI
Yes, indeed.
hit.
They're going to give him a little taste. And it looked like he picked on a changeup. Out over the plate. No, Ryan's kept the hands back. Drilled the gap in left center field. So the Indians finally get their big 2-out base hit. They're on the board. First extra base hit of the night. There's 2 hits in the inning. So that's a good sign. 4th RBI for Rayburn.
Roberto Perez with a chance to drive in a run with a 2-out hit here, but he cuts and misses. Called a strike. I don't think Perez is in agreement with home plate umpire Brian Knight, but he's in the hole now, 0-2. Upstairs, try to get him to chase one out of the zone, but Perez lays off. And this about to be the 85th pitch of the night now for Jose Quintana. Rings him up on another pitch that was borderline at best. But the Indians get on the board. Ryan Rayburn's 2-out RBI double. 3-1 Chicago after 4. Brought to you by your Northern Ohio Honda dealers. By the Cleveland Clinic. Call for an appointment today. And by the game-changing all-new Ford F-150. The future is tough. White Sox on top 3-1. Indians got on the board, though, in the 4th inning. Top of the order for the White Sox, Adam Eaton. Nick Hagedorn got the final out of the 4th inning. He'll face at least Eaton here in the 5th. You got the switch hitter, Melky Cabrera, then the right-handed hitting Jose Abreu. Anthony Swarzak, right-hander, up in the Tribe bullpen. It's not that Terry Francona's looking to mix and match here, but you don't think of Nick Hagedorn as being a long relief guy, so I'm thinking he's just in here for a short burst, get a couple of outs.
Well, it could be. They're talking it over right now as we speak.
One pitch. In addition to the obvious implications that losing a starting pitcher in the first inning of a game can do to a club, especially under the violent circumstances in which Carrasco left the game, with a quick turnaround tomorrow at 12 o'clock, it really puts the manager in a bind as to how you maneuver that bullpen the rest of the game.
Yeah, it does. And they had their work cut out for them after this weekend, the way and all the work that they had. So, I mean, they're right now in shambles.
One away for Melky Cabrera, who hit that line drive that knocked Carrasco from the game in the first inning. Still awaiting official word on the exact nature of the injury to Carrasco. We know that he was struck in the jaw by the line drive off the bat of Cabrera, and he was in a lot of pain when he left the field. You just keep your fingers crossed and hope for the very best.
No doubt.
Foul back out of play. The Indians have already been without the services of Michael Brantley for 5 of the first 7 games. Yan Gomes lost for anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks with a knee injury. Chopped towards short. Ramirez on the run. Fires it over. Santana comes off the bag.
Nice play.
Makes the catch and applies the tag. 2 down.
Well, usually Ramirez very accurate with his throws. This one was a little up the line, but Santana able to get over here as it went off the end of the bat. Ramirez was throwing on the run, but Santana comes off and applies a tag as Cabrera goes by. Nice play. It's a second out.
And up is Jose Abreu, who has struck out, flied out tonight. Fastball up high. In the dirt, 2-0.
Yeah, just be careful with this pitch.
Smash deep to left and gone.
Well, you're not going to throw a 2-0 fastball by that guy. You got to take into consideration you got the lefty on deck if you're Nick Hagedorn and he's falling behind in the count 2-0. You just don't throw one to get a strike, because this guy is dangerous, and you see why.
Jose Abreu with his 2nd home run of the year.
And here's a fastball, and watch the location. That's not going to work there. One of the premier hitters in the game, and you don't challenge him on a 2-0 pitch like that.
Adam LaRoche has grounded out and singled tonight with an RBI. So the White Sox answer the Indians' run after the Indians had answered the White Sox run.
Yeah, they come back and take a little momentum away.
Quickly 0-2 on LaRoche.
See, that's how when you get an opportunity and you have to face the best hitters in the lineup, like a Cabrera, like an Abreu here. You have nobody on. You don't have to throw him a strike. If worst comes to worst, you can walk him.
I guess that's what I don't understand. If going into the series, the thinking is this is the guy you can't let beat you.
Well, that's certainly my thinking after watching him play this year. And look, he has no problem with LaRoche.
LaRoche strikes out, inning over, but Abreu blasts one out of here, and the White Sox are on top now, 4-1.
Tri-Town MVP's Kids Club is designed for Tri-fans between ages 6 and 14. MVPs take part in exclusive events and receive cool gear to add to their collection.
Jose Ramirez going to lead off here for the Indians. Reached on an error. Stole a base but was stranded in scoring position back in the third. White Sox bullpen is quiet as Quintana climbs toward 90 pitches here tonight. We're just starting the bottom of the fifth inning. Ramirez with a liner to left. And Melky Cabrera makes the catch. In-game recap brought to you by your local Toyota dealers. Avisail Garcia with a 2-out RBI single in the first inning made it 2-0 Chicago. Ryan Rayburn got the Indians on the board with a 2-out RBI double in the fourth, but Jose Abreu came right back for Chicago and answered with a solo homer, and it's 4-1.
A 2-out RBI homer.
Well, a 2-out homer on a 2-0 count.
Yeah.
With nobody on base. Quintana plants and fires a perfect strike to first. 2 down. A time now for a Mazda game break. Here's Al Pawlowski.
Well, Matt, Rick, took him a while in Pittsburgh, but finally the Tigers scored a run in the top of the seventh to break a scoreless tie with 2 outs. Ron J. Davis gets the big hit to knock in Avila. That's been it this far. 1-0 Tigers, bottom of the seventh inning in Pittsburgh, Matt.
Fans keeping you warm down there in the corner?
A little cold.
No, not with your new jacket. It can't be.
Somebody was in the merchandise closet today.
Yeah, we saw him on pregame.
Mike Aviles singled in the first inning, walked in the third. Down on the count, 0-2. Straighten them up. Aviles awaits the 1-2 from Quintana. Slow tapper. Hit to third. Tough play for Gillespie. Off balance throw is on the money this time. And on 8 pitches, Quintana retires the side in order. Bears wrap up their regular season tomorrow night at the Q against the Washington Wizards. Coverage begins with Cavaliers Live at 7:30. And the tip-off follows at 8 on Fox Sports Ohio with Fred and AC. Jeff Phelps and Campy get you started on Indians Live half hour before the ball game. Playoff time coming soon.
Yeah, boy, they're going to have some fun.
Anthony Swarzak coming on here for the Tribe in the 6th inning after Nick Hagedorn went an inning in the 3rd. Avisail Garcia. RBI single in the 1st. Reached on a fielder's choice, scored in the 4th. Swarzak has him in the hole 0-2. And went with the off-speed pitch, trying to get him to chase down and away. Garcia chases one and strikes out. Swarzak gets the K, 1 down in the 6th.
Let's take a look at the slider from Anthony Swarzak on our Nissan pitch tracker. Down out of the, you can see it goes straight down. It was off the plate. He got him to chase after a bad pitch. Good pitch by Swarzak because he got him to swing and had it count.
You know, the pitch prior to that was just a little bit farther out, and it was down in the dirt. That one, even though it wasn't a strike,
brought it in a little
more enticing.
Right.
Ran that one in on the hands of Ramirez, who slammed it off of his front foot. Even though he's got that shin protector, he must have hit it off the top of the toe.
He sure did.
Where there's no protection.
That's why he's hobbling, yeah. There's no doubt about it. It went from the hands to the toes. Right off the instep there. And when you see him jumping up there one-legged, you know it. Straight down into your foot.
Somewhere Sergeant Holka is smiling.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it's, you know, he's a shortstop. You got to move on that foot. It's going to be sore for a while.
The 0-1. Broke his bat, and that rifled into the photo bay. Almost got Andre.
Oh, boy.
Light on your feet down there, Dre.
Andre, you all right? You know what we call those down there, don't you? Ugly finders. We got a kick out of that one. I won't use it again, I promise.
Jeff Desjardins was, you know, if anything happened to Andre, though, Jeff Desjardins was right there to patch him up.
He hangs around good company.
Michael Salazar down there, too. Unfortunately, those guys have had their hands full early in the year. Here's the 0-2 to Ramirez. Couldn't get him to bite. Might go right back to it, though. See how patient he really is. We told you this is a White Sox team that's very aggressive.
Yeah,
and he couldn't hold up. Second consecutive K for Swarzak, 2 down in the 6th.
Well, and in other words, he brings this one up a little more and makes it more enticing, as you say. When you get them down 0-2, you see if they really chase. Then if not, you bring it in a little bit closer and then a little bit closer from that point on, but he got a swing and a miss. So 2 up, 2 down, 2 strikeouts for Swarzak.
Connor Gillespie 0 for 2 on the night. He's flied to left, flied to center. First ball swinging. Kipnis
I like the
has
aggressiveness. Good job.
from the outfield grasp. Throws him out. It's a 1-2-3 inning for Swarzak on just 9 pitches. Photographer working for the Associated Press and based here in Cleveland since your days as a player, Rick, 1980.
All right.
And in addition to covering Indians baseball, he's covered the Cavs. He's covered the Summer Olympics, World Series, All-Star Games, 14 Super Bowls, the NBA Finals, PGA Championships, U.S. Open Championships. And one of his colleagues told me that tonight is his last game here at Progressive Field.
Oh, is that right?
It's going to be hanging him up here.
Well, thanks for your time, your services, your pictures.
Fantastic photographer and artist.
Enjoy wherever you go and whatever you do.
He's clicked, I mean, what do you think? Millions, maybe millions of photos over the years.
You're probably right. Look at that. He's so good. He's got the glove on the bottom hand.
He's got 2.
Well, the other one's not on this. Watch that hand.
No, I mean cameras. He's working 2 cameras at once. Though.
Oh, he's got it all. No doubt.
That's when you know you're good. No, you're right, though. Hats off to Mark on a tremendous career, accolades and awards, and obviously bringing Indians baseball on many occasions closer to fans out there.
Yeah,
where
why
they
would
can't.
this be his last game? You know, wouldn't it be All-Star break, or why'd you start the season? Unless he just went for the first homestand here.
I don't know, and I can't reveal who tipped me
yeah,
off.
I'm not asking for that. I know you're not a stoolie.
Because I don't think Mark's, kind of guy wants a lot of fanfare going out. But
no,
hey,
well, that's fine. Good luck, Mark.
Absolutely. Now we just hope our source is right, and Mark says, "Hey, I'm not retired." I'm like, what are you guys talking
we'll see
about?
him here tomorrow and the rest of the year.
Here's the 0-2. Santana fouls it back.
He'll have to give that car back that Fox got him.
Carlos walked to lead off the second inning, flied to center, leading off the fourth. Jose Quintana is retired 5 in a row. And Tyler Flowers again
one more
just
in the dirt.
Throws his body in front of one.
Well, he just didn't move. He's seen so many out there. He just stays put. 18, dozen and a half.
Santana with a liner to center, but right at Eaton, 2 down.
Well, enjoy Indians baseball all summer long with a mini plan starting at just $109. Now, each plan includes 6 Friday, Saturday, or Sunday games. It's available for 4 locations here at Progressive Field. Just visit Indians.com/mini plans and get your plan today.
Well, here is Jerry Sands, who flied to right in the second inning, singled and scored the Indians' only run in the fourth. White Sox have the bullpen ready. Zach Putnam, the former Cleveland Indian reliever from the right side. You got Jennings, the left-hander.
And you got their bullpen coach on the phone.
Clobbered foul. Somebody made a nice play, and they're getting...
He's getting beat up, man.
Is that Troy Polamalu? Heard he retired.
He did. He's coming. Yeah, he's making a tour now. It is. Troy, nice catch. He's talking about it, too.
Now the 2-2. Right back up the middle, but shading him that way was Bonifacio, the second baseman. And the Indians go 1-2-3, and now 7 in a row set down by the left-hander Quintana. Is brought to you by Kia. Visit mykiacleveland.com to learn more. By Levin Mattress, located in all Levin furniture and freestanding locations. And by AT&T Uverse, has more channels on the go than cable. Well, down 3 runs, the Indians sent Anthony Swarzak back out for a second inning of relief. Tribe has not been able to solve that guy, 62, Jose Quintana, the left-hander.
I would have to think he's done now. I would have to think he's over. He gave his 6 innings of work.
3-hit shutout baseball. And he wasn't that good tonight, but he was good enough. No other way to explain it. Ball's hit pretty well to left, but right there is Jerry Sands to make the grab. 1 down. Emilio Bonifacio, 0 for 2. And a strike over the outside corner. And that's a little bit outside, 1-1. Bonifacio is playing in just his second game on the year. They've got a terrific youngster on the infield that they like a lot, and that's Micah Johnson. Johnson came into the year rated as the number 4 prospect in the White Sox system.
A good player. Going to get an opportunity if he can stay healthy.
To left field, near the line. Jerry Sands puts it away, 2 down. Let's go back down to Andre. What's the latest on the Tribe's bullpen?
You know, after Saturday night, after Corey Kluber's game was kind of given up by the bullpen, a lot of people were down on him. But Sunday, they pitched 7 2/3 innings and only allowed 2 runs. And so far, through 6 2/3 tonight, they've only allowed 2 runs. Truly have bounced back when the team has needed them the most.
Yeah, and they're going to have to continue to lean on that bullpen the rest of tonight. And then, you know, who knows what happens tomorrow.
That's true. Well, rarely, like we did on Saturday, they've thrown 86 pitches tonight, but rarely do you see the Shaws and the Zepchinskis and those guys give it up all in one game like they did then. They'll be back. They'll be settle in, get it back to normal.
The 1-1. Strike called on the inside corner. Rope down the line in the corner. This is trouble. Eaton. He can fly. He's into second. He's going for third. Kipnis with a throw to third, and got him! Outstanding relay from Moss to Kipnis to Aviles. And I got to believe Eaton is shocked that they got him.
They may look at it again as a replay, but you know what? That was really well done. Yeah, they got him. Aviles applied the tag on the wrist. That was well done. You're not kidding. They're trying to bring the team back, but just from that last look, Aviles got him on the forearm before the hands got in.
And Robin Ventura says,
done.
No thanks.
Yeah,
we will not
they
appeal.
saw it.
Great play by the Indians defensively. We'll see if that's the spark they need. 4-1 Chicago. 7th inning stretch time. Brought to you by Spitzer Auto World. Tomorrow, it's an epic international showdown when the United States men's national team takes on Mexico at the sold-out Alamo Dome in San Antonio. Coverage begins tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern, only on Fox Sports 1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. And now I know why we haven't heard from Gary Bell, because he lives in San Antonio. He's going to the epic international showdown.
Okay, there you have it.
Dan Jennings facing Brandon Moss. Well, about the best news one could possibly hope for with regards to Carlos Carrasco, as we've just been told that the Indians' right-hander is being treated for a jaw contusion, but at this time, no signs of a concussion or any head injury, other than he's very sore. Now, I guess the question you would want to know the answer to is, could there still possibly be a fracture in that jaw, but it needs time for the swelling to go down to find out? Or
well, I'm sure in the next day or two we are going to find out. And I know one thing: he's going to be awfully sore.
Moss a swing and a miss, and he strikes out for the third time tonight. One away. All right, let's go back down to the corner set where Al Pulaski is standing by with a Mazda game break.
All right, fellas, the Browns have unveiled their new unis tonight. Here they are. They've got some orange, they've got some brown, they've got some white. You can go monochromatic, you can mix and match. There's a look at the brand new Browns unis. Matt, Rick?
All right. Well, interesting. They got all kinds of combinations, don't they?
Yes, they do. Looks like one for every game.
Ryan Rayburn doubled in a run in the fourth. Out of play to the right. Dan Jennings struck out Brandon Moss. Now he's got a Rayburn in the hole. The White Sox picked up Jennings in a deal with the Marlins. They traded Andre Rienzo.
Oh, that was John Gomes' buddy from the country, the countryman.
Brazilian, right?
Right.
That happened this past December, that trade. Boy, he's been awfully good in the first two hitters we've seen him. Back-to-back strikeouts. Rayburn has words for Brian Knight. 2 down here in the seventh. Well,
backdoor breaking ball, and with Rayburn's saying, hey, that ball wrapped around the plate. And where he caught it, I'll tell you what, that was awfully tough to hit. That'll send you back talking to yourself exactly what happened.
Roberto Perez looks at ball one, low and away. Dan Jennings grew up in California, but obviously the family moved around. He ended up going to high school in Iowa and then pitched collegiately at the University of Nebraska. And then the Marlins made him a 9th-round pick back in 2008. Back out of play. Roberto Perez, with 2 down and the bases empty, awaits the 2-2 from Jennings. Good patience. He's got the count full at 3-2 with Jose Ramirez waiting on deck. Tried down 3 here in the bottom of the 7th inning. They have been held to just 3 hits on the night. 2 singles and a double. Out of play on the right side. You know, you think about those nights during the season where you might have 10, 11 hits and somehow you've only got 2 or 3 runs because crazy things happen. You hit into double plays or just can't get a clutch hit. And then there are nights like tonight where it's not as though you're facing blow-you-away stellar pitching, but you look up and only 1 run on 3 hits.
Yeah.
But a base runner as Perez draws a 2-out walk to keep the inning alive. It's the kind of game you just hope to hang around long enough because only down 3, anything can happen. A couple of swings and this game.
Well, they got to start. They got to hurry though. You mentioned though these 2 teams, they lock up 2 runs or less a lot of times over the last 15, 18 games between the 2 of them.
Well, in the last 7 overall have been decided by 2 runs, every single one of them, and the Indians have won 6 of the 7. If Ramirez keeps the inning alive, Michael Bourne would be next. It's 1-1. There is action in the Indians bullpen, and I think the White Sox have a right-hander up as well. Zach Putnam, who we saw warming up earlier. Chopped by the third baseman. Ramirez, the shortstop. Low throw, and it gets away from Abreu. It goes into the photo bay. And that will send Roberto Perez to third and Ramirez to second. So now 2 runners in scoring position, and a base hit now could really change the complexion of this game.
There's your break. When you walk the 8th guy, the error here, watch flat-footed. Ramirez tried to get rid of that ball because Ramirez got down the line in a hurry. He didn't feel like he had enough time to get his feet going and set it. He sees the speed of the runner, and he gets it going. He can't get a little help from Abreu. The ball skips by him, so that'll be a walk. Now an error. So you got runners at second and third with 2 outs. Second error of the night by the White Sox. Both of them coming when Ramirez was at the plate.
That's where speed helps to create unforced errors. And that's what happens because you do. There's just a natural tendency to say, well, this guy's fast, I've got to hurry. And the minute you do that, you usually make some kind of mistake.
It puts pressure on that's what you call putting pressure on the defense. And Ramirez is a solid shortstop. He just tried to throw that ball flat-footed without getting a short quick hop in there. And, if you pick it as a first baseman, no big deal. But he didn't pick it. So now the Indians with a really nice opportunity to climb right back in it.
Michael Bourne at the plate, low and away, ball 1. Bourne 0 for 3 has struck out twice and tapped one back to the pitcher. And a roller to second base. Bonifacio will throw him out. So we'll go to the 8th. White Sox still in front 4-1. And may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cleveland Indians.
All right, coming back, White Sox 4-1 here, entering the top half of the 8th inning. The Indians will bring in a new pitcher, Austin Adams, coming into the ball game after Anthony Swarzak went a couple innings, gave up 1 hit. He struck out 2, did not walk, and he did a nice job, but had the Adam Eaton thrown out at third base to end that inning. Austin Adams came in and went 2 2/3 innings in that one of those ball games against the Tigers and did a nice job. Really gave up the home run to Cabrera, but other than that, everybody gave up something to Cabrera in that series. He's back again, and good arm, good fastball. The key to him is if he can spot that slider, throw it for strikes, awfully tough.
Well, there's a good fastball right on the outside corner to start the at-bat with Melky Cabrera. Just to repeat, in case you missed it, the news on Carlos Carrasco, very positive. X-rays were negative, taken at nearby hospital, Lutheran. He's got a pretty serious bruise, contusion. Chopper to short. But no signs of a concussion or head injury at all. So I guess the other question you wonder, Rick, is, how long will he be out then? If let's just say, hypothetically speaking, if all the news to this point, which has been very positive, is it a DL situation though?
I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Just wonder.
You never know. You got, like you said, you have to wait till the swelling goes down. You have to wait to see how he feels tomorrow. I'm sure they'll look at it again. It's hard to tell. But I mean, the news that we hear right now. No concussions, no facial fractures as of right now. It sounds good. I think that's the best you could hope for.
No doubt about it.
I mean, for just happening here in the first inning.
Yeah, because when he left the field.
When he was flat on his face for a good 5 minutes. Man, at that point in time, it was scary to watch. So it's hard to guess. I wouldn't even guess.
Swing and a miss and a good breaking ball from Austin Adams. And
nice slider.
that's the one you were talking about.
Yeah, when he has that pitch working, that's a tough at-bat to face him because he gets it up into the mid-90s. You know, a lot of teams haven't faced him yet. He was up for just a short stint in September last year. But you got to love his arm.
Line right at Kipnis. 2 down. Well, here's our Yellowwood bringing the lumber, and Jose Abreu brought it when they needed it. Right after the Indians had scored to make it 3-1. He had a 2-out solo homer on a 2-0 pitch to make it 4-1, and that's where we stand.
Yeah, not a very good pitch there by Nick Hagan on a 2-0 challenge fastball, and he lost that challenge.
Adam LaRoche 1 out of 3 on the night. RBI ground out in the first, singled in the fourth. Bullseye hits the outside corner. 1-1. Indians figure LaRoche for a dead pull hitter, and why not? That's kind of been his MO. They defense him accordingly. A lot of times the third baseman will wait till you get to maybe 2 strikes before he abandons all the way up to short.
Yeah, 4-1 lead. They know he's not going to bunt. You know, go ahead. Now's the time. Lay back. They don't need base runners. He's going to take a healthy cut because he has the count in his favor.
No, it's 3-1. And he took a healthy cut but fouled it out of play. And a full count. Adams retiring the first 2 here in the 8th, and LaRoche did not offer at the 3-2. It was down and in. And the walk keeps the inning alive for Garcia. In-game box score brought to you by your local Hyundai dealers. For Chicago, all but the 6, 7, and 9 hitters have contributed with at least a hit tonight. 8 in all. Adam Eaton came into the game 2 for the season. But a couple of hits tonight, although he was thrown out trying to stretch a double into a triple to end the 7th inning. It's not like the White Sox have hit the ball all over the ballpark. Bourne all the way to the warning track in the middle of it to make the catch. Ends the inning. Tribe is 6 outs away. They need to get rolling offensively, down 4-1. Inning coming up, and as we promised you earlier, it's Miller time, brought to you by Miller Lite. This is good teamwork right here.
Watch Kipnis as he goes down. He picks up a low throw and does a nice job, and Aviles makes a nice pick and tag to get him out at third. That was really well done all the way around. Kipnis went down to get it, got his feet in a great position. Aviles backhanded that short hop, and he made the tag. That was well done. Got him out at third base. And I was watching Eaton run around the bases. He didn't even look. He was thinking triple as soon as he saw it go into the corner.
I'm thinking, as you take a look at Zach Duke, how frustrating as the hitter or the base runner to be flying the whole way, and then at the very last second you see a glove slap the tag on you. Like, where did that come from?
Bang, bang. Yes, indeed. If you make two good throws, it's not that deep down there. You hit it in the alley, they got a couple of longer throws to make.
Gordon Beckham came in last inning as a defensive replacement at third. And Mike Aviles takes a look at a ball down and in. Aviles has singled, walked, and grounded out. Popped out a play to the right. Aviles shoots it out of play. Well, the Indians have Aviles, Kipnis, Santana coming up here in the 8th. And Aviles strikes out. 1 away. 9th strikeout for Chicago pitching here tonight. And we invite you to stay tuned for Indians Live, presented by Conrad's Tire Express and Total Car Care. It's coming up next here on Sports Time Ohio. Al Pawlowski, Jensen Lewis will break it down from the corner set. Hopefully we'll be talking about a come-from-behind win. Kipnis shoots one, just follows, kind of squibbing up the third base side. Well, Zach Duke ready with the 0-1. And a foul back. The Indians have seen nothing but left-handed pitching tonight from Chicago. The starter Quintana, Jennings, and now Duke. They have no other left-handers in the bullpen that we're aware of. See Kyle Drabeck, a right-hander, getting some action. Their closer is David Robertson. Kipnis flied out in the first, turned into a double play, flied out in the third, and then grounded out in the 6th. Zook's got that, or Zach Duke has that sidearm slinging type delivery.
He's a gunslinger, right, from the left side. Tough to pick up. He falls to the first base side of the mound.
He was a starter for most of his career with the Pirates. And then when he went to Arizona in 2011, started transitioning to the bullpen. And he's pretty much been full-time since. Pitching a couple of years with the Washington, and then last year with Cincinnati, or 2 years ago with Cincinnati, last year with Milwaukee. 74 games out of the bullpen.
Got a nice payday from the White Sox coming over here this year, coming out of the bullpen. So I'm sure as this year goes on, we're going to see this guy quite a bit.
Swing and a miss. He strikes him out. And that's 10 Ks for the White Sox staff tonight. 2 down.
You check it out behind, you look at it like a fastball, but that one looked like it had a little slider to it, and then he has more that you could throw the sweep it, maybe take a little bit more off and have more break to it to get you to chase like he did to Jason when he had 2 strikes on him. He tightened that one up.
Breaking ball in there for a strike. You got to wonder what happened during the 2013 season, because Duke started with Washington, pitched in 12 games, and in those 12 games, he logged 20 innings. He allowed 20 earned runs on 31 hits.
Wow.
Released, went to Cincinnati, got in 14 games with the Reds, gave up 1 run in 14 games. 1 run in 14 games, and then last year turned that into a 74-game season for Milwaukee, 74 appearances, a 2.45 ERA, and as you said, a big off-season payday.
Right. Well, whatever went off, was it the light? Maybe it was a different pitching coach in Cincinnati, or somebody in Cincinnati that saw something that he went off on, or hard to tell.
Yeah. 3-1, Santana pulls it foul. Well, I guess the bottom line to all of this, you can analyze it, you can talk about it, but until this club starts to produce against left-handers, they're going to see him lining up to face him.
There's no doubt about that, Matt.
Duke strikes out the side, and we go to the ninth. 4-1 Chicago. Well, it's a 4-1 Chicago lead as we go to the ninth inning, and our Pat O'Brien play of the game. Tough to watch because it was awful at first look.
Yeah,
no better on the replay.
Second hitter of the ball game, a little deflection off his glove right into the left side of his jaw, and he was down for a while. Although, when it's all said and done, actually it got hit on the right side of the jaw.
News about as good as you could possibly hope for when it's all said and done.
Yeah,
X-rays were negative, and it's just a wait and see. But no signs of a concussion early and no head injury. So now the question is, Rick, as we
find out more tomorrow,
speculated, like how long will he be sidelined? And normally you wouldn't even ask that question. But this team has already been besieged by injuries, and you're just wondering, boy,
what's
next? They had to get into the bullpen the third hitter of the game. So does this force the club to have to make yet another roster move for tomorrow's game because it's such a quick turnaround? Zach McAllister went 3 2/3 innings of relief Gave up 1 run on 6 hits. But when he came into the ball game, there were 2 men on base, courtesy of Carrasco, and both those runners scored. Nick Hagedorn gave up the solo homer to Abreu. Anthony Swarzak 2 scoreless. Austin Adams trying to go 2 scoreless himself. Tribe does have a left-hander up in the bullpen as Alexei Ramirez skies one to left. Jerry Sands has it 1 away. We'll bring up Gordon Beckham, first at bat of the night. Beckham off to a good start this year, 3 out of 8. Big chopper to short, and Jose Ramirez will throw him out. Funny thing is, in baseball, a good start can go to a bad start in about the span of 4 or 5 at bats, and vice versa. Tyler Flowers, 2 hits on the night. Good fastball at the knees. Boy, when a pitcher who can throw mid to upper 90s can locate at the knees, more chances than not he's going to be successful.
Yeah, it makes it awful tough to hit that pitch.
That one hung a little bit, but Moss still able to run it down. And a good 1-2-3 inning for Austin Adams, so he goes 2 scoreless. Last chance for the Tribe's offense coming up next. Let's look back at our keys to the game, brought to you by Wayside Furniture. The Indians wanted to keep the guys in front of Abreu off the bases. Now, in the first inning, both Eaton and Cabrera reached, and they both scored. And then Abreu went deep on his own in the 5th. And the Indians are still just befuddled by left-handed pitching, period. Starters, relievers, tonight. They have not been able to get it done. 1 run on just 3 hits. So maybe a right-handed pitcher will get them rolling. Although,
yeah, you're getting
it's
down
the closer.
To their best. Their closer, right? A guy that's got a good arm, and that ball explodes and comes on. It'll be the 4th time he's appeared. He's 1 for 1 in save situations. Pitched 3 innings, 5 strikeouts and 1 walk. Yeah, a guy that doesn't give up a lot of hits. Did a nice job after Rivera retired with New York, going in there and ended up, became a free agent, and he left.
He's retired 7 straight, and 4 of them by strikeout. And he'll be facing Jerry Sands, Brandon Moss, and Ryan Rayburn scheduled here in the 9th. And a strike is called. At the knees, outside corner. And Robertson quickly ahead. No balls, 2 strikes. Breaking ball and a beauty.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a nasty breaking ball is right. So the last 4 outs have been strikeouts by the bullpen from the White Sox. This is a bigger breaking ball, not the cutter. It's like a slider right on the outside edge. See you later. That's a good one.
Brandon Moss takes inside ball 1. Rick, you have to wonder, is it simply changing times in the New York Yankees organization, or is this just a flukish exception to the rule? When the Yankees have good players, especially guys that get to free agency, they usually don't walk. They usually get re-signed to big contracts, especially when they produce. And Robertson,
yeah, well,
I mean, he's averaged 10 strikeouts per 9 innings in his first 7 seasons.
Well, think about it. Who he had to fill the shoes of after he retired. One of the best closers of all time, if not the best. He went out and had a great year. You would think, okay, we can't let him walk, but they felt they had a couple. Betances came out and had a year. I don't know. This guy has been good for him for a while. He has very good stuff. And that ball explodes on you because when you watch him stride, he strides a little bit farther than most pitchers do. He's not a big guy, but that means you don't see the ball. And it's on you by the time you get there. And he's got a good cutter and a great slider.
He's only 5'11".
Right. That's what I'm saying. He's not a big guy. He's like a Cody Allen. But that stride, when you watch him, man, the next thing you know, the ball's on you and he buries you. And that's 4 strikeouts for Moss tonight.
Yeah, he has had a brutal night. I mean, just... it's the kind of night you want to forget about quickly as you can if you're a hitter.
Watch that stride. Here comes a delivery, and he's out there, and boom, right by you.
Five straight Indians hitters have struck out now.
We've got Murphy coming up to hit.
2 down in the 9th, and David Murphy will pinch hit for Ryan Rayburn. Down and in. Just when you think you're sitting dead ready, drops a nasty breaking ball. The 0-2 went right back to it. Murphy lays off. Strikes out. Throw to first. That'll end it. Now the Indians' woes continue here at home. The last 6 hitters all go down via the strikeout. And the Indians drop this one 4-1 to Chicago. And with that, the Indians fall to 2-5 on the year. They've lost 4 in a row, all 4 here at home.
Yeah, that's their longest losing streak at home since 1987, starting out the year. That's not good.
Well, Robin Ventura's club goes to 3-4. Indians, as I mentioned, 2-5 on the year. Jose Quintana gets the win. And you want to talk about tough luck loser. Carlos Carrasco was only here for 2 batters, and he ends up with the loss here tonight. But the good news for the Indians is it appears that Carrasco escaped serious injury. Now we'll wait to see just how long he will be sidelined. We're right back tomorrow with a 12 o'clock start here between the Indians and White Sox as we wrap up the brief 2-game series. Stay tuned for Indians Live, presented by Conrad's, coming up next.